So welcome everyone to the 11th session of the Byte Size Lunch Series, Making Assistive Technology Work for People with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. This webinar series is a collaboration between the Rutgers Community Living Education Project, also known as CLEP, and the Richard West Assistive Technology Advocacy Center at Disability Rights, New Jersey. Today's Byte Size Lunch presentation, Introduction to Augmentative and Alternative
Hello, everybody. Welcome
Communication,
to
is
our
being presented
webinar. I'm going to air quote that and call this a webinar conversation.
Oh yeah, that's just me.
Where
No
we
big deal. I don't know why things are playing. Wait a second.
Artificial
totally
intelligence.
fine.
What the heck is
So-
happening?
Give a plug for one of our
Today's-
other events that we did already, which
Technology's the best. Oh, okay. It's fixed now. Okay.
Perfect. So again, today's session is Introduction to Augmentative and Alternative Communication,
Hello, everybody.
being
Welcome
presented
to
by Mike
our
Murata.
webinar. I'm going to air quote that and call this a webinar conversation, where we continue the
Why is it doing?
Yes, everyone. We apologize. Our AT session's having some AT issues. And
Hello,
we're
everybody. Welcome
absolutely
to
going to blame
our
this on Mike.
webinar.
Yeah, totally
I'm
blame it on me. It's fine. It's like weird, like double layers of me talking, which is really awkward. All right, let's see if that fixes it. It's the video automatically loading. And if it does it again, I'll just close the video completely.
Totally fine. Let me know when you're ready.
That is so funny.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to try this. So again, today's session is an introduction to augmentative and alternative communication. Is really being presented by Mike Murata, Naomi Leibowitz, Peyton Williams, who are all representing the Richard West Assistive Technology Advocacy Center. We are also excited to welcome a special guest to today's session, Ms. Catherine Fredericks from Communicom, Incorporated. My name is Melanie McGacken, and I am representing the Rutgers Community Living Education Project. CLEP is a program through the Rutgers School of Public Health. The CLEP team is committed to really providing individual guidance, mentoring, and resources regarding the possibilities in community living for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The CLEP team member contact information is on your screen, so please feel free to contact us for any additional information or support whenever you or someone you know is ready to explore community living options. Before we get started today, let's go over how you can best participate during today's webinar. To ensure the highest sound quality possible, all attendees will initially be muted during today's event. To interact with the host or presenters, please use the Q&A option on your screen. And if you would like to ask any questions live during today's presentation, please just send us a message and we would be happy to unmute you during your turn. We recognize that often we are learning from each other during these presentations, so we really encourage you to provide any resources that you may want to offer to the other attendees during today's session in the chat section of your Zoom control panel. At this time, I'm happy to welcome today's presenters, Mike, Naomi, Peyton, and Catherine. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Melanie. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. As you can see, we're tech experts. That's so funny. I'm going to have a good time today. I feel like this is going to be fun. Everybody buckle in. We're going to have a good time. We are very excited to have you with us here today. This is going to be a good conversation. I'm excited from looking in the chat of just kind of the variety of who's here today, which is really wonderful. I think it's going to make for a really great conversation as we go. As we move through our conversation today, and I'm going to keep calling this a conversation because I think that's a better way to approach something like this. We'll have some information to share, but we'll have a lot of opportunities for you to be part of the discussion. It'll be less talking at you, more talking with you. But in the process of doing that, we do have some resources we can share, and they are in the slide deck, which we've made available to you. So we have a link that's on the slide right here, which is a bit.ly, a shortened link, bit.ly/AACMAR2. That capitalization matters with that shortened link. And I bet as soon as I start to type it, Naomi will drop it in the chat because she usually does. So I'm going to wait, and I'm not even going to start typing it yet because I feel like she's going to beat me to it. You could also scan the QR code on the bottom left corner, which will take you to the slides as well. So slides have resources in them. I don't know if you caught the whole issue of our webinar. Thanks, Naomi. our webinar starting. One of the webinars is embedded in a slide, and apparently it must be on auto start because it just started talking. So there'll be some good links in there for you as you go forward. Like Melanie said, we want to hear from you. So feel free. You can reach out in any multiple way you can. You can use the chat. That's perfect. You can use the question and answer box. You can request to have your mic turned on. We're game for all of that. We're a good sized group. I'm sure there's tons of resources in the group that we would love to hear. So feel free. This is your open invitation to participate to whatever level you are comfortable participating as we go forward. You've now been given free range to participate. So as Melanie said, part of our group today is from the Richard West AT Advocacy Center. That's me. I'm the director. Naomi is in the chat and in the question and answer, handling those things for her. She is our AT specialist, and Peyton is on the screen now. Peyton is our newest staff member, just strolling into week 2 of her job here with us, which is really exciting. Peyton is also going to be an assistive technology support specialist with us, social support specialist. So there's all of our contact information as we go forward. Please feel free to reach out to us for anything and everything related to assistive technology, especially if you're from New Jersey. Our goal is to help people across New Jersey with AT, and I'll give you a little bit more about us in a second. But I want to give Kathy a chance to introduce herself, our special guest for the day.
Okay, so I just retired from the school system after 25 years in the school system, but I've been an assistive tech person for over 45 years, so it's a bit longer, right? And I now have a private practice, which is Communicom. So my information is down below. I'm also, I think, the only LAMP certified speech pathologist in New Jersey. There might be 2 of us, but pretty sure there's at least me. And I'm also an autism specialist, have that credential. So I've worked with a lot of students with multiple disabilities and a lot of students with autism and developing language abilities. So that's me.
Awesome. Always great. Kathy, thank you for jumping in and joining us today. I think it's really great. It kind of lends itself to this kind of conversational aspect of this, bringing in some supports of other people who have different levels of expertise in this field that can provide some support. So who are we? If you've never heard of us, consider yourself knowledgeable of us now. Here is who we are. We are the AT Advocacy Center at Disability Rights New Jersey. We are federally funded to provide assistive technology resources across New Jersey. We do those in a couple ways. I won't go into the very long presentation, but I will give you like a 5-minute, here's who we are kind of thing. We do 3 main things. We can help you explore assistive technology devices. And when I say you, I mean a person with a disability and the team that supports that person. We can do what we call demonstrations, which allows us to show different devices and compare and contrast features to see what might be best for the individual. We do host a loan program. So if you want to borrow something to try it, you can reach out to our loan program and borrow things for 3 to 6 weeks. I think it's somewhere in there. That you can borrow equipment. That is a free service to you. All of these services are free that we do. The loan program, especially powerful for the fact that it does not cost you anything. We will mail you equipment and they will give you information to mail it back. So there is a 0 cost for you there. And then finally, we support a device reuse program out of Goodwill Home Medical down in Camden County, where they collect gently used durable medical equipment from the community, refurbish it, sterilize it, clean it, fix it, do whatever they need to do, and then put it back into the community for a significantly reduced rate. Naomi has dropped all of that information in the chat. Well done. Thank you. So that's there. You can reach out to them. They are partners with us in this process. We were commenting at the very beginning, this is the 11th in a series of webinars we've done with CLEP, which is really exciting. We have a couple more. With this one is obviously today, March 2nd is our AAC session. We have 2 more in this list, which is in April, we're going to try something that we haven't done yet, which is just an open conversation. Come and talk about anything you want. You might find a lot of the times we'll say, we don't know, but let's explore that together. And we'll go and we'll hunt it down as we're talking. But we'll do kind of an open forum conversation. And then May 4th, we're going to do what we're calling a Tech It Out. So a demonstration of reading and writing supports. So we'll do some exploring of different things that are out there for that. These are all on the Rutgers website. You can get more information about that. Here's a couple things I want to tell you about that we have that are incredibly powerful for you. You clearly like learning because you're here. So that's good. So how would you like to learn a little bit more about assistive tech? So we have partnered with the ATIA organization, that is the Assistive Tech Industry Association. They have an online learning center of recorded AT sessions that you can go in and kind of purchase a la carte. You know, here or there, an hour here, an hour there, and each of them has a cost. We, through our center, have done a year-long subscription. So anyone who lives or works in New Jersey can access every single thing in the Learning Center for free. So if you are interested in that, you can fill out the form. Naomi has dropped the link in the chat as well. And you fill out the form. Pretty much the form just says who you are and where do you live, just so that we can track that. Could you lie? I guess you could, but why would you do that? Don't be a liar. That's not nice. But what we're doing is we'll send you a code, and then you can get into that stuff and be able to explore the Learning Center for free for the entire rest of the year. So that is pretty exciting for us. And finally, two more things, and then we'll start. We have at the end of the month we're right now, the 25th, and then the 30th and 31st, we are holding two different learning events. One, probably very pertinent to the group today that we're talking about. We're doing a 2-day introduction to pod training on March 30th and 31st. Both of these events are down in West Windsor at Mercer County Community College. So we'll be hosting a national pod trainer to come in. Pod, and I get this wrong, Kathy, get ready. Here we go. Let me see if I got it. Pragmatic Organization.
Dynamic display.
There you go. Pragmatic Organization of Dynamic Display. So that's what POD stands for. You can check that out on our website if you're interested in that. And then we're also hosting, I see a lot of people are joining us from schools. I would say to you right now, if you're interested in joining us for a day-long technology conference, we're going to host that on Saturday, March 25th, where we will be getting together in West Windsor there at the college and doing an entire conference day of concurrent sessions that include hands-on opportunity with a lot of different assistive technology. So please consider joining us for that. As we go forward, maybe what I'll do for the people who are here in person, when Kathy's talking at some point, I will drop in a code for the Inclusive Technology Education Conference. The cost for that is $20. I'll drop in a code that will bring it down to $5 for you. So we'll give you a little discount because you're here today learning with us, and we'll give you a discount for that. But you'll see me drop away for a minute. Kathy, you'll have to lead the discussion for a second while I find that. And so hopefully you can join us there. And I think that is all of my plugs and assorted other things. Yeah, I think it is.
All right.
As we start on our topic, let's jump into it finally. I'm really interested as we go through this discussion because I realize, and I think we did this fairly deliberately, we've put together a list of slides and some discussion points, and it's not technology focused at all. And I love it. It is really about the process of how you go about making sure you're looking at appropriate technology tools for someone. And so we always start with this slide when we're talking about these technology issues, where we talk about the SET framework. If you're not familiar with the SET framework, it's from Joy Zabala, and SETT, the student, who in this case we've broadened a little bit to someone, to keep the S, but to be broader into the adults that might be in our audience as well. So someone, who is that person? What are their needs and abilities? What are their wants? What are their likes and dislikes? The environments they're going to use technology in, the tasks they need to complete, and then finally the tools. And I think keeping that framework in mind really helps as we start to narrow down what it is we're talking about with regards to the technology tools. I think a lot of times people want to start with the tool. That doesn't always end well. We get a lot of people trying the newest, greatest, flashiest, shiniest thing, and that's always not the answer as we start thinking about what does the individual really need. And so let's use that as our jumping off point. Let's keep it in that framework. And then Kathy and I said, before we were talking, I said, Kathy, we'll just kind of go back and forth. And now I realize all I'm doing is talking. So I'm going to stop for a minute and I'm just going to wait and let Kathy talk, and then I'll jump into.
Okay, so those of you who are in a school system usually know that we start with tools, or they start with tools. So I hope you consider that set framework moving forward, because the tool is the last thing we need to consider, right? Communication is exchanging information in any way, shape, or form. The easiest way to exchange information is by talking, all right? In schools, communication is usually performance. In a lot of situations, communication is performance. You know, we want the student to do this, to say this, to answer this question. But real communication is snug, all right? Spontaneous, novel utterance generation. Okay, the goal of communication is to be able to tell people what you're thinking, not necessarily the correct answer. So if you have a little boy and you say, okay, what day of the week is it? All right, you want them to say Thursday, and he's going, I need to go to the bathroom. That's snug. That's what's on his mind. That's what really matters. And any families I've ever spoken to, if you ask them when their child graduates school, what is the most important thing that they want for their child? It's to be able to communicate with them. It's to be able to tell them what they're thinking, what's bothering them, what they love, what they want to do, right? Okay, so what is AAC? Augmentative or alternative communication. It supplements speech, writing. It can replace it. Years and years ago, before the iPad, it used to be for the most severe students, kids who were physically involved, couldn't speak at all. The systems all cost $5,000, $10,000. We still have those systems, and they are very appropriate for very many people. However, with the advent of the iPad and communication applications, we've now expanded the idea of supplementing and encouraging language and developing language using AAC. So it's no longer a last resort. Oh my gosh, my kid's going to get AAC. That means they gave up on talking. I cannot tell you the number of preschoolers and early language learners who came to me with not one word, who benefited from modeling AAC and language. And by third grade, we eliminated the AAC because they were verbal communicators. All right. So who can benefit? Anybody. Doesn't matter how old they are. They can be 2 years old. They can be 102 years old. If their verbal speech is not possible or understandable, how many people have students or children, mom and dad can understand them at home, and you know, I'm familiar with them, I know what they're saying. That's great, but not across environments, not when they go to the store, not if you want them to be independent, not to the janitor who says hello to them. All right, developing, just starting out learning language, improving articulation, or in those cases, deteriorating, an ALS person, right? They're going to need something like AAC. There are a lot of myths and there are facts. I cannot tell you how many times people still think that AAC is for people who don't talk. Anybody who doesn't have reliable verbal speech can benefit from AAC. And I've seen it over and over and over again. My families with young children, they think, oh my gosh, we do not want this piece of equipment because you're going to give up on talking. And I tell them over and over and over again, it can actually help your child talk. If your child has the ability to develop speech, they will. We all take the path of least resistance. What's the easiest way to communicate? Talking. Absolutely talking. If talking isn't working for us, it's not because we're lazy. It's not because we didn't work on it hard enough. It's because it's really, really hard and we're in the process of developing it. In the meantime, let me not frustrate you. Let me give you something as a tool that might help you along in the meantime, as a bridge, so to speak. All right. It's not a last resort. Okay, we tried everything, so now we're going to give them AAC. I give 2-year-olds AAC. I gave a 13-month-old AAC. Now, a lot of times you're thinking of high tech, iPads, computers, pieces of equipment. It could be a simple picture board. A simple picture board is considered low-tech AAC, right? It supplements. You can point to a picture. Even little children, even 13-month-olds can point to the picture of what they want, okay? I cannot tell you how frustrating it is when I hear the next one. There are prerequisites. They need to know pictures. They need to be able to categorize. They need to be able to match a picture to an object. They need to have there are no prerequisites. Can I say that again? There are no prerequisites. I heard someone speak once and they were asked, and what prerequisites are there? And she thought about it for a minute and she said, well, they need to be able to breathe. That's it. Okay. So moving on. Pre-linguistic skills are necessary to introduce AAC. They need to be able to understand the concept of communication and interaction and all of those things. And the reality is, no, that's the reality. You can develop all of those things using modeling on robust AAC, and I'll get into what robust is in a little bit, right? But you can learn all those things using AAC. You don't have to have all of those things. So I want to throw out to you the concept of the least dangerous assumption, and I'm sorry, we don't have a slide on that. The least dangerous assumption was introduced in 1984 by Ann Donnellan, and basically it says that in the absence of conclusive data, now think of our kids, think of the people. What do we really know that they're able to do? So we have nothing conclusive. We have no formal testing that is appropriate, that is going to give us what we need in terms of potential. So in the absence of conclusive data, educational decisions ought to be based on assumptions that, if not correct, will have the least dangerous effect on the likelihood that students will be able to function independently as adults. And that's our goal. That's our goal. Independent communication, snug, tell me what you're thinking, communicate. All right. So this is part of presuming competence. Everybody has something to say. Everybody can learn, regardless of what you think you're looking at. Don't underestimate. Please don't underestimate. Give them words. Let them communicate for all kinds of reasons, not just asking for things. I want milk. I want bubbles. The world is bigger than I want. When is the last time today any one of you said, I want something? My guess is not at all. Maybe once. You socialized, you talked to one another, you talked about things, you asked questions, you complained. All right. All of those things are so, so important. And it's really important to give everyone, including our earliest language learners, access to the alphabet. We give it to general education peers. Why would we not give it to other kids in the same age group? There's no good reason, except maybe for a lack of expectation, right? All right. So,
And as we go on, Kath, one of the important things I always think about when I think about this topic and really any topic of AT that we're talking about is the opportunities we have to insert these kinds of supports across the lifespan for someone. And this is not something where if someone didn't have communication earlier in their life, we never introduce it. And this can happen at any point. I always think that it's so powerful to remember that the tools and supports we're talking about are for any person, any age, any disability, any environment they're in. It's across the span. And you know, I think that's because I have heard people say that to me is, oh, well, you know, it might be too late to start on this. Well, it's never too late to start on anything.
no, we all learn across the lifespan.
Of course.
You're all here. How old are all of you? Don't answer me. Don't answer me. Okay. But you're still learning. So what makes us think that someone with a disability doesn't continue to learn?
Exactly.
And what we're presenting today was not available 15 years ago. So you can have an older adult with a disability who did not have access to what you have access to today. Why can't we give them? Why can't we try it? What's to lose? Another one of my favorite quotes is Buckminster Fuller, I think. There's nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a butterfly. You have no idea.
So true.
Again, I can't tell you the students that I've gotten through the school system. They come to me in kindergarten with a choice of 12 things. This is what they're allowed to talk about. Oh my gosh. And then everybody has a conniption because I give them 84. They're like, oh, they can't do that. And guess what? They can.
Yeah.
It's
and even that idea, Kath, right? That idea, this is what they're allowed to talk about. Like even just that kind of mindset that needs to be shifted is really interesting at times. And this thought that's all that this person has to say. Well, that's not true at all. We know that that's not true.
We absolutely know that that's not true. And the other piece is it's not even that that's what they're allowed to do. It's that they need to prove what they know before we can move them on to bigger and better. Well, when you talk to a 1-year-old, do you practice over and over and over and say, okay, say mama, say mama, say mama. Okay, when baby can do mama, we can now move to dada. Oh, we can now move to gamma. No, they don't have to prove anything.
Right.
We talk at them using all kinds of language. And we'll get into that a little bit later on how that can work through AAC. So basically, you know that there are two kinds of AAC. One is unaided, the other is aided, right? So unaided, you're using your own body. Anything that you can do with your body is unaided. You don't need a tool, all right? So speech, easiest thing in the world. Body language, facial expressions, touching things, pointing to things. All of those things are unaided. Aided AAC is really what we're talking about today, right? AAC can be high tech, can be low tech, can be no tech. All right, so low tech is a simple picture board. All right. High tech dynamic display things. Dynamic display means that when you touch one thing, it goes somewhere else, in essence. Okay, and sometimes depending on the program, it can go to a whole bunch of different places. So you can have a screen with maybe 84 things, but within those 84 is a way to get to over 3,000 different kinds of words. All right. Speech generating devices are the ones that I was talking about before that are very expensive. Those are the thousands of dollars, the very advanced eye gaze communication programs. And they're usually durable medical equipment and things that you get through insurance. What I find being used mostly in schools are iPads with communication apps. And again, I'm going to caution you that one size does not fit all. There is feature matching. But when you're feature matching, also consider the potential, not just the current ability, what I can show you now, because the reality is they may not be showing you much of anything right now.
Mhm.
I have children with autism. I've had many of them pass through my therapies, right? They don't look like they're looking at you. It doesn't look like they're listening. It doesn't look like much of anything. They need highly specialized. They need to do this. They need to perform. Again, performance. And then I come along and I play and I talk to them using an AAC device. I talk to them. They don't have to do anything. I'm doing it. What I'm doing is I'm modeling language. I can't tell you how very, very, very important it is to model language. AAC really can be considered a second language. Now, if you are learning a second language, say you're going into a Spanish class, you don't go into Spanish class and the teacher asks you in English, all right, now tell me Monday in Spanish. Ah, no, they do language immersion and they're busy speaking at you in Spanish and you need to answer in Spanish. How often, think about it, those of you who have any experience with AAC, do we come in speaking English,
Mhm.
but we want the student to respond in AAC? Not fair.
Mhm.
If we want anyone to use AAC, we need to do language immersion. We need to learn the system, whatever it is. Okay? We need to speak to them using their system, either on our own system or even on their system. That's how they learn. It's language immersion.
Mhm.
All right. Where are we? These are three very common, what's the word I want to say? Words that you're going to hear when anybody is talking about AAC. Core vocabulary is vocabulary I like to call them forever words. So when you learn them, you use them forever. So if you use the word go at, 2 years old, go, 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 you're still going to use them at 102. I gotta go, right? Still using the word go, different meaning, different way. But once you learn it, you're not going to unlearn it because you're going to use it across all environments. And that's important. How many times in school systems, it's performance and answering specific questions, and we're busy there making boards with the answers. And then you're going to walk out of that, and the following year, you're never going to use those words at all. So we spent all that time teaching those words in order to answer the questions. But they won't be useful 5 years from now, even 1 year from now, right? So core vocabulary is very, very useful. It also makes up 3/4 of what people use when they talk. All right. When's the last time you walked in the kitchen and said, give me the spatula? Probably not. Probably if you ask for it at all, you say, give me that thing. The big one, not the other one. There's not one noun in there. Those are core words. So even without you knowing the word spatula, you got your point across. And that's core vocabulary. So that being said, fringe vocabulary is also really, really important. All right. The name of your pet dog, that's not core vocabulary. The name of your specific family members or specific vacation places that you know you're going to go to forever. In my case, it would be Disney. I would be going to Disney. That word Disney is on all of my AC devices because Mickey Mouse, these are very important characters to me and always will be, right? So fringe vocabulary is also very important. However, you need to understand that core vocabulary is the basis for creating sentences. The building blocks of language are core words. Those of you in education, Dolch words, those are all core words. That's all core vocabulary. It's not fringe. All right. And yet, when we have students who use AAC or anybody, what do we tend to give them? Nouns. Why do we give them nouns? Because they're easy to make pictures of. And that's how we kind of got away from core vocabulary and Dolch words for AAC users and wound up with noun vocabulary for AAC users. Doesn't have to be. The reality is it really doesn't matter what the picture is, but I can talk about that later. All right, robust vocabulary. It means not only nouns, but verbs and adjectives so that you can talk about all kinds of things. I can take, if this were a longer course, I could give you 100 basic core vocabulary, and I would challenge you to make as many sentences as you could out of those 100 words. And I guarantee you that you could make not only many, but I also guarantee you that there would not be one duplicated sentence within the entire group, because everyone thinks differently. And depending on how you put those words together, that's snug, right? Spontaneous novel utterance generation. We all think differently, and we all create different kinds of communication opportunities. So it's really, really important. But you'll hear this: core vocabulary, fringe vocabulary, robust vocabulary. Very, very important to have it all. And that robust vocabulary flies against, I'm going to give you 12 choices. And those 12 choices are going to be what I think you want to say. So I had a child once, golly willikers. Okay, so 12 things. One of them was very common: I want to go to the bathroom. Child sat at the back of the classroom. Kept pushing, I have to go to the bathroom. So Par said, okay, let's go. Well, picked up the child. Child had a meltdown, kicking and screaming, refused to go in the bathroom. What's the problem? You said, I want to go to the bathroom. Well, the issue was the bathroom smelled. He was sitting in the back of the classroom. The only thing on his choice board was, I want to go into the bathroom. Poor child, how frustrating. So also need to think about, sometimes it is very useful to put a phrase or something, but individual words are generally better, because the unique way that you combine words is unique to each and every person and how they think. So just another thought. Okay.
One of my favorite things, Kathy, that made me think of a story of some of the adults that I used to work with in the center I was at, and they had low-tech boards. In fact, one of my favorites was on a piece of plywood with a laminated alphabet on top of it that had been like polyurethane to make it look really nice. It was the greatest piece of wood ever. It was so nice. But that was their communication board. And on the very top of his board, it was all letters except for the very top. It had two big boxes with phrases in it. One of the phrases says, I don't have that word.
Yep.
Because he couldn't figure out how to spell that word. And so that was his relation to I don't have that word. And the other one was, and he would always point to this when we started a conversation. He would make eye contact with you as the communication partner. And he'd always point right at this word. And it was a phrase block. And it said, be patient. This will take some time. I was like, oh, that's such a great kind of statement to kind of set the stage for that interaction, which we know with communicators has a potential to take a long time, depending on their access. And I know you're going to access next, but that made me think of that whole point where he was like, this will take time. In essence, it will be worth it though. But stick with me. I have something to say.
That made me think of something else. How many times on a communication device or even a picture board, you have a choice of yes and no, assuming that you're doing core words.
Yeah.
How many times have you seen I don't know?
Right.
I don't know needs to be on here. All right.
Right.
Because otherwise,
You mentioned things we've said already today. I know I've said that today bunches of times already. So that should definitely be on my board.
I don't know. And so you're asking a question. It's wonderful. You're using core words. Yes and no are core words. However, you're missing, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because then they have a 50-50 chance really of being right or wrong.
Right.
But what they really meant to say was, I don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. One of my most rewarding times with a student was when that student actually, because I had been modeling, gee, I don't know. And he actually turned to me when I asked, I was doing formal testing that he graduated to, a child with significant autism. And I was asking, you point to the pictures on a formal test, show me blank, show me blank. And he looked, he thought about it and said, I don't know. That was priceless. That went right in my report.
Perfect.
As a plus, because that was significant snug.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
So I felt very accomplished at that point, that what I had been working on mattered. It mattered. I can't tell you the number of times that I've provided AAC using more advanced AAC. All right, or what people might consider more advanced AAC, a choice of 84 things, a choice of 100 things, a choice of 77 items. And as the students learn to use it, their educational trajectories changed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I presumed competence, because I modeled, because they got it. So I challenge everybody. What's the more dangerous assumption? Assume that they can't and you only got them to here, right, with no possibility of going to here, or assuming they can get to there and they only got to there. Which one provides the most opportunity? Right. Providing that opportunity, giving them the chances, and they take time. It doesn't happen overnight. It just doesn't happen overnight. But it does happen. So if I can throw out just one really, really positive thing, because I know many of you are from a school system. In my particular school, the last one I was in, I've been in many. The last one I was in, I was there for about 6 years and worked very, very hard, because I tend to be very passionate about AAC and AAC inclusion and AAC within the school system and AAC within the classroom. And I had a student that came to me in kindergarten. He was using a particular communication application. He was taking the iPad and he was flinging it across the room, did not speak, and behaviorally was a bit of a challenge, right? Didn't read, didn't know that. Nothing, right? Couldn't write. Fast forward, he is now in 5th grade. I had him for 6 years. Okay, I just retired last month, right? But I had him all up until this time. He is using his AAC device. He is speaking. He is communicating with general education peers throughout the school. And I am so proud to be able to say he was just elected student council vice president of the whole school by his general education peers. It's possible. It's possible. So that's just an aside. All right, what are we up to? What's next? Oh, access.
Access.
There is nothing.
Kathy, we have 15 minutes. Keep an eye on our time. 15 minutes.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I'm not going to stop conversation, but, and if anybody has things to add, please throw them in the chat and we'll get to them.
Okay, so access does not ever, ever, ever prevent somebody from having AAC. It just doesn't. We just have to think out of the box. We have to come up with a way to access. It can be direct, pointing, eye gaze, looking at something, right? Using any body part, head switch, whatever, okay? Well, no. Indirect, switch, So scanning, using switch scanning. Partner assisted scanning would be the same as if I have something and I am pointing, and then the user is giving me an indication, yes, there, yes, there, yes, there, or no. Well, not usually no. It's usually nothing until you get to where they want, and then they indicate either with a head nod, a vocalization, a movement, and we need to be creative. Okay, so access never should prevent consideration of an AAC device. All right. Teaching strategies. Next one, there you go.
Gotcha.
Aided language is what I was talking about that I have had exceptional success using. AAC, if you consider it as a different language, AAC is modeling, but not requiring the user or person, child, student, to do anything themselves. They could be off looking at the pictures. They could be anything, but I am still modeling. And I'm not only modeling maybe single words, sometimes I'm modeling entire sentences. And yes, I'm modeling grammar and endings and spelling. I'm modeling all kinds of things because I am presuming competence. I don't know what's going to stick. So I give them everything until they start to show me where they are. And as I'm sitting here, I can tell you that I have never, and I don't use that word lightly, never had a student that never showed me anything. They all have, every last one of them. And some of them have really, blown my socks off, like my 5th grader, who is now student council vice president. Yeah. So aided language, you hear a lot about it, and it works. That's all I can say. It works. Descriptive teaching is using a lot of the high frequency words, and that's what the core words are. Core words are not developmental. First we learn this, and they're by frequency of use. All right, what words do we use most often? Well, probably the word is. All right, words like that. So if I were to have an activity with descriptive teaching, I were targeting the word go, we would be doing things that go. Wind up toys, go. Oh, go. Don't go over there. Let's go over here. Let's make this one go. Descriptive teaching. And the prompt hierarchy, least to most. I shouldn't have to say it. Unfortunately, I have to say it because there are people who still think it's a good idea to do hand over hand. That takes away a person's independence. It is really, really important not to use hand over hand. If you do resort to some kind of a last resort, in my opinion, help with the motor, at least do underhand. Okay, not this. This is not independent. This is a little bit better. I don't use it at all. I've never ever had to resort to any kind of a physical prompt. What I use, actually, let's see, because I know I printed it out. I use things like expectant wait. I'll do something, and then I'll stop and I'll look at it. And 9 times out of 10, they get bored with waiting for me and they go and they do it themselves. So expectant wait really works well. But in general, prompts should be least to most. And I think that's right. Pretty much. Oh, we have some samples of low tech and high tech. The low tech really are on your left. They're pictures. Mid tech would be something like the Prox Talker, which says Katie's turn to roll the dice. You take pictures, you put them on the little squares, and you push the square and the square speaks. And then on the right, obviously, are the high tech, the top 2, iPads, and the eye gaze device that's on the right. So,
And then,
question.
Kathy, you want to talk about your brochure?
Oh, this is a brochure created by the New Jersey Speech and Hearing Association AAC committee for families. This one is geared toward families. There are others. There is another brochure for professionals also on the New Jersey website under For the Public. So you go to For the Public and brochures, and then you will find a lot of information on AAC. But this is specifically for families, debunking the myths, how it helps develop language. It can help develop speech. And it's free to the public. So I hope people take advantage.
Awesome. The other resource we have at the back end, and this I think could be a conversation for itself for a whole hour and then plus some, is this whole idea. If you're following technology news at all you hear about is artificial intelligence and Chat GPT. If you've heard that term, that is an artificial intelligence chat bot that is internet based that allows you to ask it questions and it produces answers for you. What's interesting is we're starting to have these conversations in the field of AT is, what does this mean for the future of possibly AAC? And giving people robust language that is specific to the situation they are in, because the artificial intelligence has a lot of information that it uses to generate a model of what a person might want to say. And then those pieces of information get put onto their device for them to choose from. And so not only is it using input from the user, but it's also recognizing input from what the user has previously said, as well as conversations they've had in the past and topics or answers that align with what the question might be at the time. It's all very theoretical at this point, but I like the idea of thinking about this technology that is emerging and looking at it as a way as, how does this impact us in the AT field? And so that's just a screenshot from a webinar we hosted last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't know, it's all kind of blurred together now. Recently, we hosted a webinar called the Maker Roundtable, and that link came from that. We also just hosted a webinar earlier this week on this whole idea of artificial intelligence and assistive technology. And that's the link to the entire recording if you want to watch it. We talked about AAC, we talked about education, we talked about a lot of things. So more resources for you as you go forward, something to think about. Oh, you don't want to watch it now. Unless you had 58 minutes now, you could certainly sit and watch it now. But let's spend the last couple of minutes chatting with you. Melanie's going to pop on and tell us questions we haven't seen or answered, and then we're going to go from there.
Mike, we had some, first of all, thank you so much, Catherine. It was lovely having you join us for today's presentation. Thank you so much. I want to ask about assessments. So with an educational system, I'm assuming that a parent would go through the child study team to request an assessment if a family was considering using additional technology for communication purposes. And I'm assuming that a family would go through the support coordinator within the adult system to do the same. Can you talk a little bit about what that process may look like for a family? What does an assessment entail?
Oh, wow, that's like a few hours for what an assessment should entail. But if I'm hearing you correctly, how do you go about getting an AAC evaluation is really more the question. Okay, so in a school system, yes, you would go first to your speech pathologist, okay, because they can be your best friend. Then to the child study team. Child study team meets, you either open up an IEP, you do not have to wait until the end of the year or when your child's IEP is due. You can ask them to have a meeting at any time. A lot of people don't know that, but that is the way it works, right? So you can ask for that. You can ask for an AAC assessment, and then the school system would find people in the area that are available and qualified to do an AAC assessment. These are AAC specialists. Not everybody is qualified to do an AAC assessment. Having someone come in and look and say, oh yeah, sure, they can benefit, we'll give them this. Totally flies against the set framework, which you saw at the beginning. There's a lot more involved in an AAC assessment than just, this is what we use in our district. This is what works for the majority of our students. So this is what your child is going to get. You're really better off having an AAC specialist take a good look. So it's worth advocating for that. And parents are good advocators. SLPs sometimes have their hands tied, depending on the school system, right? Parents, you have a lot of power, more than you realize, right? The other piece is, say your child is in early intervention or younger then, and you want an assessment, or your child is in preschool and somehow you're battling the school system and the school system is just not going for it. It's taking longer than you think. You also can get a private evaluation. There are private practitioners within the state. Not exactly sure where you would get the information on who is available out there. I don't know, maybe through Advancing Opportunities. I know they do it. There are different, clinics that would do an AAC assessment. So I don't know if did that answer your question?
I think that's where I would start to look. And certainly individuals could reach out to us through our information referral, and we could point them towards individuals in the community that would do assessments for adults with AAC needs. And I think like anything else, I think what's interesting, and as we listen, as Kathy goes through, and we're talking about this throughout the hour, all of the examples we talked about cut across all of the ages, by the way. I mean, that's the beauty of assistive technologies. The things that Kathy's describing and we're talking about are not just school-based. There are certain things about how those tools were implemented that were school-based, but the concepts themselves of vocabulary and access and thinking about these pieces and being thoughtful about that cuts across all of the age groups that we're talking about. Thinking about how you put together vocabulary for someone who's out in the community. I think that's really a powerful conversation. And sometimes that's what gets missed when we think about adult implementation for AAC. Is a lot of times, I think the concept of apps and smartphones in AAC has been a good thing, and it's maybe not always been a good thing. I'll give it it's a little of both. Because it has given more access to these tools and they are less expensive, which is good. The not so good part of that, I hate to call it bad straight out, but I'm going to say the not so good, is that people are using the pre-programmed vocabulary that comes with some of these apps that is just not appropriate for the individuals they're working with. And so the things that Kathy's talking about are so critical about having an understanding of what is the vocabulary somebody has to have access to in order to be successful. And she mentions this idea of being friends with your SLP. That is exactly why you want to be friends with an SLP, to help them help you determine what is the vocabulary I need at this point. And then as I grow as a communicator, how does this change with me? We've seen many individuals, and Melanie, I'm sure you've seen it too, adults in the community where they've gotten a device years back and their vocabulary has never been updated to reflect where they are as a communicator right now.
And Mike, if I could add to that also, I think one of the things that we need to stress, right, is we know that when someone enters the adult system in regards to their supports, depending on where that person is being supported and how they're being supported, quite often, right, staff turnover can be great. Yeah. And making sure that training is happening across the board so that there is consistency in regards to someone's communication, their communication style, how that person effectively communicates, and also if that is more of a high-tech piece of equipment, how to update that to stay current with the vocabulary that would be relevant for that person. Yeah. So I think that that's an additional piece that some individuals may lose, as they're aging out of the educational system, right, where there is a consistent, where there's more consistency in regards to the teacher and the speech therapists that are in their everyday lives. So that's definitely something. I noticed that Naomi did drop advancing opportunities information in there. So again, within the adult system, we encourage you to approach your support coordinator in regards to any questions you may have about that. We encourage you to reach out to any of the resources. And again, Mike, Naomi, awesome resources for someone to reach out to find out a little bit more information about what next steps may be, if appropriate, for that person.
Yeah,
I
for
also
sure.
wanted to throw one thing out there
Please.
is that even when you have the most appropriate device, that is not going to make someone communicate. Implementation is key. And implementation not only within the speech room, but you get the whole village on board. And I have a whole other conference that I do on implementation and how to achieve it and how it is possible. But I would tell you the key component to that is passion, stubbornness, perseverance, and patience.
And there's really that. I agree, Kathy, 100%. I think it's been really good. It's almost like you sensed the chat because Brenda put that in the chat just as you were saying it, so that you guys were right aligned there in your thought process. I would like to encourage people before you go, save a copy of the chat. There's really good information in there. And I know Melanie gets the chat and she'll be able to download it for us. But if you want to take that back with you now, there's really good stuff in there, including Naomi put the link to our conference we're holding at the end of the month, and I put in the discount code in there. So it will bring your registration from $20 down to $5. Who doesn't like a $5 day of learning? So hopefully you'll spread the word about that. And I don't know if we got everything, Melanie, did we?
I think we did.
Yeah, I
If
think we did,
not,
yeah.
Mike, can you just put up the contact for both you and Naomi?
All right, and hold on.
And then as Mike's doing that, Naomi, I just want to say out loud before I forget, if you'll send me that link for the conference within the next 24 to 48 hours, everyone will receive a follow-up email.
Awesome.
I'm going to make sure to put in that follow-up email the Tech It Out demonstration conversations that CLEP is doing in collaboration with ATAC. And also the open mic session. So again, open mic, you're going to bring your any assistive tech questions that you may have, maybe thinking about, things you may be considering, bring them to that session. We're going to unmute you. We're going to let you have that conversation openly, and we're going to help you problem solve. So again, I think two great sessions. The conference that Mike is referencing that Naomi has been pointing out in the chat section, will make sure that you get that code along with the link for registration in that follow-up email also. And just as important as we're signing off today, you're going to see a really brief 30-second multiple choice kind of survey that's going to pop up on your screen. We strongly encourage you to take the minute to complete that. It's the information that you provide to us that it really allows us to plan for additional sessions to better serve the community in the area that you want to learn more about. So please, we encourage you to contribute any ideas of future sessions that you may be interested in, and we'll make sure to put something together for you all. Catherine, thank you so much, as always. Mike, Naomi, Peyton, truly appreciate your constant involvement in these presentations with the CLEP team. So thank you everyone for joining. Again, you have Mike's contact and you'll have the CLEP contact in a follow-up email. So thank you everyone.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks, be well.